It is the second half of the growing season, and it is time to check in on the potential of the corn and soybean crops and to assess the health of the crops. We'll do that this morning, and let's check in with a member of the House Ag Committee following yesterday's meeting that focused on EPA overreach.
Live from the 11th of 7 via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This morning we begin with a conversation with Dr. Michael Cordonnier from Soybean and Corn Advisor. Then it's Representative Randy Feenstra from Iowa's 4th District. Later, Dr. Alison Robertson from Iowa State University, and directly following the news, Greg Henderson from Drovers. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson, and now, the host of AgriTalk, Chuck Flory.
All right, Davis. Hey, thank you so much. I'm glad that we've got Dr. Robertson on the show. There's some tar spots showing up in Iowa, and it's one of those deals in the corn crop that the earlier it shows up, the more potential damage it can do. So we'll talk with Alison about how to get out there, scout for it, take a look, and if you do find it, what do you do about it? We're going to try to bring all of the what's going right for the corn crop and what's going wrong for the corn crop. We're going to try to bring that all together and see what the net impact is with Dr. Cordonnier. Looking forward to that. And Congressman Feenstra was fired up. Had the conversation with him late yesterday afternoon after he got out of the meeting, the Ag Committee meeting. We've got that for you at the bottom of the hour, and it was a meeting that I don't think anybody left it feeling okay about the progress that has been made with the Farm Bill. Okay. So we'll get to the bottom line of that with Feenstra. Okay. All right, let's get to the news. What do you got, man?
Sure thing. The National Weather Service is looking for extremely dangerous heat to continue in the western United States for the rest of the week, with widespread excessive heat warnings and heat advisories. Hazardous heat will expand in coverage over portions of the central and eastern United States late this weekend into next week, with the heat expected to persist longer over portions of the southeastern U.S. and the East Coast. Chip, the last of Hurricane Beryl, which actually was downgraded once it hit landfall, is expected to move through the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast, which the National Weather Service says will leave flooding in its wake. AccuWeather's preliminary estimate of the total damage and economic loss so far from Hurricane Beryl in the United States is $28 to $32 billion. Yeah.
Huge totals, and still trying to get the power on in many areas around Houston in particular with that heat moving in. That's going to be zero fun. Yeah,
it's no good. The agricultural trade deficit, or the value of exports from the U.S. versus imports into the country, increased in the first 8 months of the fiscal year. USDA says the deficit was $15.2 billion so far in the 23-24 marketing year. That runs through September 30. That compares with a deficit of $3.89 billion during the same period last year. Quite the jump there in the deficit.
Well, yeah, horticultural products, fruits, vegetables in particular, are at a huge deficit this year compared to previous years. And it's because it's just cheaper to import because of labor laws and rules and regulations here in the U.S. It's just cheaper to import than it is to produce it here. This is too bad.
Yeah. Well, Atlanta Fed's GDP Now estimate for second quarter growth jumped to 2.0% from 1.5%. This rise marks a positive shift after a series of declines driven by stronger personal consumption and private domestic investment growth. Chip, it's 7-11. I'm going to double down on this being revised back lower quietly in the upcoming quarter. What do you say?
Yeah, that's probably right. But CPI showed that inflation is slowing, and slowing even further. For the first time, I'm thinking it may not be September, but for the first time, I'm thinking maybe the CPI data does open the door for an interest rate cut before the end of the year.
Well, Strategy Grains increased its forecast for EU soft wheat production by 500,000 metric tons. That would still be down 3.3% from last year and the lowest in 4 years. Chip Media reporting following the Supreme Court's overturn of the 1984 Chevron decision has largely predicted a flood of environmental and other lawsuits. But farm and business groups buoyed by the decision see a more limited impact given Chief Justice Roberts' cautionary note that the ruling does, quote, not call into question prior cases that relied on Chevron. National Cattlemen's Chief Counsel Mary Thomas Hart had this to say.
The amount of rulemakings that could be subject to litigation, if you just kind of opened it up like that, it would clog the entire court system, right? We wouldn't get anything productive done for the next 10 or 15 years because there would be this constant reconsideration of every rule that's been finalized since 1984.
See, and this I like. This is Chief Roberts' note on the ruling. Let's leave what's been done. Let's move forward here without the Chevron decision. I think
and that's what we focused on.
Yeah.
That's what we focused on in the conversations with lawmakers. It changes how they do what they do going forward,
right.
Not what has been done in the past.
Yep. Let's wrap it up with this one. NATO issued a declaration on Wednesday night calling out China's military support for Russia in Ukraine. The declaration described China as a, quote, decisive enabler of Russia's war against Ukraine. China criticized the claim, saying it, quote, comes with malicious intent. Chip?
Stick in hand, poke the tiger.
Yep.
Might as well. Why not?
Sure, it
Why
seems like
not?
a good idea.
Yeah, always seems like a good idea. All right, thank you, Davis. Let's bring in Greg Henderson, editorial director at Drovers. Hey, Greg. We saw those record cash prices 4 weeks in a row. This week it looks like there's some pressure. What's the status?
They are lower, and that summer slump is slower than usual, at least a month later. And, you know, prices have been strong despite those record-heavy carcass weights. Those have added 19,000 head per week to the slaughter total because of the 21 pounds heavier cattle that are coming to market. And over the last 7 weeks, it's been 32 pounds heavier. But demand remains strong, as I said, for beef. Focuses on the fundamentals that are supporting a fed cattle market that could be strong this fall, Chip. And another strong signal of demand is the price of lean grinding meat. This week, the price of 90s was $370 per hundredweight, which is $80 a hundredweight higher than last year. That's 28% higher, Chip. And that explains why the round and the chuck primals, which seasonally decline, have held their value. So anyway, these higher values for that grinding meat, you know, we're headed into a summer slump in terms of demand because of the weather and so forth. But fundamentals remain very strong for a healthy cattle market this fall.
It really does. Good grief. $370 for the 90s. That's an impressive number, man. It's a hamburger economy and people are buying it up like crazy.
Absolutely,
Greg, thanks, buddy.
Chip. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Greg Henderson, editorial director at Drovers. We are talking the potential of the U.S. corn and soybean crops. We'll get a little bit on the safrinha crop as well. Dr. Cordonnier is next.
The best talkers in ag, including you. Join the conversation on AgriTalk. Call us at 855-4TALK-AG.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Glad that you are with us.
It's a good thing you came in. I had some grade A prime nonsense just about ready to fire there, brother. Wow.
Wow. I was going to start with breaker 19. Is that what I was going to do?
I'm like, well, somebody's got to say something here.
I just couldn't help it. I was listening.
You did great. You did great. Thank you for leaving me a little space. I'm sorry I was so insensitive. Good, buddy.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. That's Davis. And let's talk crops, both in South America and here in the U.S. We've got Dr. Michael Cordonnier with us. He is the Pro Farmer Crop Consultant. Company is Soybean and Corn Advisor. Michael, it is great to talk with you again. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Always good to talk to you, Chip.
Yep, love it. You know what? I want to start in Brazil. That Safrinha corn crop harvest. It's rolling right along. How's it looking?
Yeah, they're like a 63% harvested as of last week. And then CONAB came out this morning, and they raised the corn estimate, 1.1 million tons, up to 115.8. And they did it because the Safrinha crop is bigger. You know, the Safrinha crop, they found more acres like they always do late in the season. They found 47,000 more hectares compared to last month. So, and the yield went up as well. The yield is up 1.6 bushels. So that Safrinha corn now is yielding 88.3 bushels per acre. Okay. Now, you got to remember, you think that was kind of a low corn yield. That's a second crop. That's coming after a first crop of soybeans.
Right.
So the crop is getting a little bit bigger. You know, I'm at 116, so kind of the same thing. We're both below the USDA. We'll see what the USDA does tomorrow in their report. Now, for soybeans in Brazil, basically unchanged. They left at 147, and I'm at 147, so no problem there.
Okay.
But one final thing here about that Safrinha corn. You know, the Minister of Agriculture in Brazil has allowed farmers to plant their soybeans earlier. So they're going to be able to plant soybeans September 1st, this coming growing season. And that means the Safrinha corn gets in early because they'll be harvesting soybeans maybe in mid-December in Brazil. So between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we'll be hearing about soybean harvesting in Brazil.
Now, why did they make that change? Have they figured out how to control rust so they're expanding their growing season?
Well, it came as a request by the cotton producers. The cotton guys asked the minister last year, can you plant our cotton early, plant our soybeans early so we can plant the cotton early so the cotton matures before the annual dry season really kicks in? And the minister said yes. So last year, about 40, 50 cotton growers in Mato Grosso were allowed to plant early. So then everybody said, hey, I want to plant early too. So they are going to plant early. Now, as far as soybean rust, actually the earlier you plant, the better it is to control rust.
Really?
So the soybean free period has been moved up a little bit in Brazil. So it's going to end September 1st. So good news for Brazilian soybean farmers and also for cotton growers.
And corn growers that are growing that second crop of corn. I mean, the corn crop's going to react the same way as the cotton. So,
yes.
Amazing.
So the corn goes in early, it's harvested early, and guess what? Exports start early as well.
Yep, exactly. Okay. I want to make a list, Michael. What's building corn and soybean crops and what might be taking some bushels out of the equation. So let's start with the positives for corn. What's been good for the corn crop this year?
In the U.S., right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we had a good start. So everything was looking very good early on, good soil moisture, all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And then we had the heavy, that's the positives. I think another positive is the soil moisture right now. Man, with a hurricane dropping lots of rainfall in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, right now, the only two states that are really on the dry side, Indiana and Ohio. Everybody else is above average in their soil moisture. And even in those two states, the drier soil is in the southern part, not in the main sort of agricultural area. So that's a positive. Lack of heat, I should say lack of extreme heat, is a positive. Yep. So all those are positives. And they increase the acreage, planted area.
Yep.
Now for the negatives.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, of course, we had all that moisture in Minnesota, South Dakota, northwest Iowa. So that's a problem. Ponding, localized flooding, that sort of thing. Then we had, really, I can't find many. Okay, we got the southeast United States was on the dry side. So they had a little bit of problem down there, a little bit of problem in the Delta. I'm really hard-pressed to increase that list of the negatives.
Yeah. So what's it all mean? What are you thinking on this corn crop?
Well, I am using 900,000 less corn acres harvested compared to USDA for corn, and then 750,000 less for soybeans. Now, I don't know if I'm right, wrong, too high, too low, or whatever. We'll see later on. So I'm at 179 for a corn yield with a higher bias. And man, I think the crop condition on Monday is going to go up another 1 or 2 points. We're going to be above the long-term average in condition, and there's no threatening weather on the horizon. Yeah, we might get a few days of 90s, but there's no heat dome coming in, no blocking pattern. So I'm at 179 with the corn yield with a higher bias. I think that 181 from USDA, maybe not a done deal yet, but it certainly is more possible right now. Okay. And we're going to hit 50% pollinated probably about July 17th nationwide. And I think the timing of this rain in the Eastern Corn Belt was just ideal.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Just right before pollination, good moisture, no lack of heat. So I think it's looking all pretty good.
So you've got a crop, around 14.75?
Yes. So my corn crop right now is 14.77.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's it's a heck of a crop. I mean, that 179 would be a record yield by 1.7 bushels. That's a heck of a big yield.
But it could get bigger.
Okay, and you've got an upside bias on it, but still, it's
right.
It's about 400 million bushels below what the market is probably trading right now. Just on my guess. That's just on my guess on what the market might be trading. So, what about on soybeans, Michael?
On soybeans, the 52 bushel I think is good. I have no problem with that for a yield. Like I said, I have 750,000 less acres harvested for soybeans.
Okay.
So I got the soybeans at 4.39 with a higher bias as well. And I think the soybean yield, my upper limit is right now 53 for soybeans. Maybe a little bit more. We'll see how the last part of July and all of August turns out.
Okay.
We got a cushion of soil moisture going into the end of the month and in August, so that's all good. And on the corn side, if you do 181, that gives me a 14.93 billion bushel. So, unfortunately, we are getting higher in yield and lower in price. So, can't have them both, I guess.
Yep. I don't feel like you're saying that the corn and soybean crops are on cruise control into the end of the year, but they've built the foundation for good yields.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I would not say they're done deals. But, in some of these eastern areas that got good rains here from the hurricane, you're good to the end of July, and then 1 or 2 rains in August, and you will be, ready for, calling it a done deal.
Right.
So, the market always decides about 4th of July. Do we have a good crop, a bad crop, or in between? And I think we can now say it's a good crop.
Yeah. The scary thing to me is that we can talk about record yields, and that could still be a positive for the crop or for the markets, just because the expectations have gotten so high, and it feels to me like maybe the expectations might pull back just a bit, but I think you're right, Michael. The base has been built, and it's just how much weight we can add to the crops now going forward. Michael, thank you so much. I really appreciate you making time.
Always my pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Michael Cordonnier, Pro Farmer Crop Consultant, Soybean and Corn Advisor. We've got a conversation with Representative Randy Feenstra coming up next. Welcome to this installment of the Soy Checkoff Check-in on AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory, and joining me right now is Tom Frisch. Tom, welcome to the Soy Checkoff Check-in. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me, Chip.
All right. You're up in Minnesota, right, Tom?
Yep, Dumont, Minnesota, so west central, right in the little hump there.
Okay. How's your season been so far this spring?
One word would be wet. We it was dry all winter. We really had no snow, and we got an early spring. Started, right away around 20th April, and after a couple days in the field, the rain started, and it never really quit. So there's a lot of preventive plant acres in my area, and stuff that did get in that wasn't tiled doesn't look very good. The tiled stuff looks good.
Yeah. Yep. So water's obviously been your biggest challenge so far this year.
Yep, just too much. We just haven't got a nice stretch of nice weather, let anything dry up even for the first time. So it's really been a struggle.
Right. Weed control becoming an issue?
Yeah, we're just, and this is late now too. We don't have all the spraying done yet. Most people in the area, ourselves included, use some pre-plants, and we were able to get that down. So it's holding.
Okay, good. Tom, you're a volunteer fireman as well, is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, how long have you done that?
I graduated in college in May of 2000, and I would have joined in September of 2000. So when I moved back home.
Wow, good for you. Thank you for doing that. This month on the Soy Checkoff Check-in, we are discussing the soy-based firefighting foam. How does a product like soy foam improve the firefighting operations, Tom?
Well, it just gives us one more tool to use and frankly, we have foam, but this is safe for the environment. It's completely compatible with our existing equipment and procedures. So when we use it in place of existing foam now, we don't have to change anything on our fire department or how we use it. And it's compatible, like you say, with the inductors and the aeration nozzles now. So we can use them on both Class A and Class B fires. And again, like I say, it's environmentally sound product.
Right. Well, it's very cool that it sounds like it's a drop-in product. You can swap out what you're using now and replace it with the soy foam. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I haven't had firsthand use of it. I know it's still being tested and slowly rolled out. And I really look forward to being able to use it and see it in action. So,
well, you mentioned that it's better for the environment, but it's safer for the firemen too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Nope. Absolutely. So, and me, I guess I see both sides. As a farmer, I think it's really cool. I mean, a soy-based product that it's environmentally safe, but it's safe for firemen all across the country to use, and it's made out of soybeans that we grow. So,
yeah. Yep. All right, so let's dig into this just a little bit further on soy foam's other benefits. Elaborate on how it's better for the communities and the environment compared to the firefighting foam that's available to us right now.
Well, as I guess, like I said, it's made out of soybean flour, but it's 100% free of polyfluoroalkyl substances, short PFAS, that I know I've been hearing a lot of the last few years. You might also hear them called forever chemicals.
Right.
And it seems like every day there's something on TV or every week about how these chemicals are starting to contaminate communities all over the United States. So if we can do our part to, as soybean farmers, as a soybean checkoff, to come up with a product like this that uses soy and it's good for the environment, it's a win-win, Chip.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, who is putting the product out? Is it a company called Cross Plains Solutions?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So I think we can learn more about this soy foam and the Cross Plains Solution soy foam TF 1122. You can go to crossplainsolutions.com to learn more about that. Tom, I'm so glad that we've got this product out there. Like you said, the press on the forever chemicals has not been good. So if we can get rid of them with soy foam, we're going to do it, aren't we?
Absolutely, Chip.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, thank you, Tom. That is Tom Frisch, a 2-year board member and infrastructure and connectivity demand work group lead at the United Soybean Board. To learn more about the United Soybean Board, go to unitedsoybean.org. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Now, let's get back to AgriTalk.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. The truth is hard to come by these days, unless you listen to AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Joining me right now, Representative Randy Feenstra. He represents the 4th District of Iowa. Congressman, welcome back to AgriTalk. It's great to talk with you again.
Hey, Chip. It's great to be on AgriTalk. I always enjoy being on. Thanks for having me on today.
Good. I'm glad you're here. I've got a lot that I need to talk with you about, but I got to ask you first about the people up in the 4th District, Northwest Iowa. Been a lot of flooding, dealing with some avian flu issues. How are they doing?
Yeah, I tell you what, it just feels like the plagues here. We had tornadoes earlier, about a month and a half ago. Have the avian bird flu that killed approximately 10 million birds in Northwest Iowa, and then the floods. I mean, these floods. I mean, my heart just goes out to see these communities, to see some of the farmsteads that went underwater, and very little insurance coverage. So a lot of these people lost everything: their vehicles, their belongings, their homes. We're trying to help out with the FEMA and the presidential declaration, but that only goes so far. So it's really painful to see.
Yeah. How has the federal response been? Is it okay?
It has been so far, but right now it's short term. I mean, what we're trying to do is trying to get places for these people to live for the next 6 to 12 months as people rebuild. And then also, how do you restore some of these places, these homes that had their foundations knocked off, that had water 4 feet on the main floor. So there's a lot of challenges as we move forward.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Wednesday afternoon, there was an Ag Committee meeting looking at the EPA overreach. Tell me what happened.
Exactly. So I was really excited about our chairman having this, and we wish we had the EPA director there, Michael Regan, and unfortunately he wasn't able to be there, but we had others there. And for me, the big thing is I wanted answers, especially on waters of the U.S. I hear this thing has been flip-flopped around. Obviously, under the Trump administration, we relaxed the rules. The Biden administration put stringent rules on it. That got overturned by the Supreme Court last year. And then the Biden administration took zero public input, and they reintroduced a new rule, making it as bad as what it was. I mean, it's ridiculous. And what we heard was, this has got to change. I mean, Congress has got to act. We've got to put this into where we want it, and when we hope we can do that yet this year or next year, just relaxing this rule where right now every creek, pond, stream, puddle is being overseen by the EPA. And it's just a permitting paperwork nightmare for our farming community, and that's not what it should be. So that was talked about a lot. We also talked a lot about pesticides and herbicides and things like that. We have to make sure that these things can get through the EPA, and all these increased regulations, again, dramatically hurts our agricultural industry and the uncertainty of what we can use and what we can't use as we move forward. So again, we sent letters to the EPA concerning this issue, that it's overregulated, and they continue to ignore, obviously, the farmers. Then finally, the other big issue that we talked about was the EV mandate. I mean, here's just another attack on liquid fuels, that by 2032, 40% of light trucks need to be electrified. And right now, we're only 1% of in the nation, less than 1%. And by 2032, they want 40%. Are you kidding me? First of all, we don't even have the infrastructure to make this happen. It's going to cost $1.5 trillion to electrify that type of fleet. So it's just, again, the EPA burying their head in the sand, creating these mandates, and really making it burdensome for our agricultural community.
Yeah, Congressman, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk with you even before the hearing took place. What is the status of the EPA EV mandates? I mean, there are times that I think it looks like it's being considered a failed experiment and it's time to move on. And there are other times that I feel like EPA is pushing EVs as aggressively as ever. What's the right read?
Right. Well, the right read is they want to get rid of liquid fuel vehicles. I mean, that's the administration standpoint. They want everything electrified. And, this really worries me about biofuels. I mean, they're putting their thumb on the scale. They're giving credits to electric vehicles. They're putting these mandates down to make sure that, by 2032 that this happens, which can't happen. But you can see exactly where they want to go. They want all liquid fuels out of this country. And again, I look at the capitalistic approach that the consumer should decide, not the federal government. And that's why we really push back. I've had 150 of my colleagues sign on to a letter demanding the EPA overturn this rule. The letter was also in the Senate with Senator Crapo to say, hey, this is untenable. It's unworkable, and let capitalism prevail. So again, this is what administrations do, and that's why it's so important that we understand how important it is to have the right administration that can help the farming community.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good thing that Chair Thompson called this hearing. It was something that needed to be done and had to be hashed out. And speaking of the chairman, ranking member David Scott from Georgia, he laid a delay of the Farm Bill right at the feet of GT. It surprised me a bit since it's passed the committee, but he did it right in his opening statement. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, the ranking member, Scott, I was appalled at what he said. So what he simply said is that it's the Republicans' fault that this thing is not coming to the floor. We had 4 Democrats vote for this Farm Bill out of the Ag Committee. Mm-hmm. And when we bring it to the floor, we need bipartisan support. That means 25 Democrats. He absolutely refuses to come to the table and to negotiate some of these points. In the Senate, you have Stabenow, a senator from Michigan, who's head of the Ag over in the Senate, refuses to even create a bill. And so we are negotiating with ourselves. You know what? If they want this bill done, then come to the table. And that's what's so frustrating about this. And he was very disingenuous by going after Chairman G.T. Thompson. This is a great bill. And if they don't like it, hey, we can do some negotiations, but they got to come to the table to do it.
Yeah. Even when I talk to senators, congressmen, they seem to be thinking that the next step is for G.T. Thompson to bring the bill to a full floor vote. When I would like to see the Senate go ahead and make some progress on their own. Why not?
Correct. We want that also. I mean, we want to see a little bit of movement in the Senate.
Yeah.
Again, else it's negotiating with ourselves, and we can bring it to the floor if we can get 20 to 25 Democrats. I mean, why bring it to the floor if we only get 4 Democrats? I mean, we want this bipartisan because we absolutely know that to get it through the Senate, the Senate is controlled by Democrats and Schumer, that you're going to have 60 Democrats to pass it. So it's just frustrating that, they're blaming us. We have put the bill together. We've passed it through the Ag Committee, and we've seen no movement from the Democratic side or this administration. It's extremely frustrating.
You left something out, and you said it earlier, but you left something out this time. You passed it out of the House Ag Committee with 4 Democrats voting for the bill. We cannot forget that. It is a bipartisan bill that should be able to find the support on the House floor, and it, boy, yeah, I'm frustrated as well.
We would love it. We would love it to have the support on the House floor. I mean, currently, we do our counts and stuff like that every week to see where everybody's at, and we're talking a lot to all members, both Republican and Democrat, to get full support. But we have to make sure that we take it to the floor, that it passes. Yeah. And, we would love to see the Senate move something, or at least create a bill. Right now, they just have bullet points, and right. That's where we're just sort of like pushing a rope. And again, as the chairman says, why negotiate with ourselves when we don't even know what they want?
Yeah. Okay. All right. We had Senator Ernst on the show yesterday. We got to talking about the used cooking oil situation with imports of what appears to be contaminated cooking oil, not used cooking oil. She said there needs to be a congressional fix and change the language over the tax credits. Is that how you see it?
Well, this is why the Ralston plant, partly the reason why the Ralston plant closed, is that we're seeing, the cooking oil come into the market and swamping the market. And it's not cooking oil. The Senator Ernst is absolutely right. I mean, you're dipping a French fry into oil and calling it, soy oil, and you're calling it, used oil, which is incorrect. I do think we have to have oversight. We need to increase our RVO levels, which is extremely important. But here's a situation that we need Department of Agriculture and the Department and the EPA to look into this and see what's going on, and the Trade Administration. I mean, there's something awry here, and we have to address it. But again, here's a situation where the administration refuses to look at it. We sent a letter, and the letter gets, you can send all the letters you want, but if they don't want to answer it, they don't answer it. And that's what's so frustrating about this.
Okay. Not a lot of time left, but I got to ask you this. Give me your take on President Biden. Is he going to stay in the race?
Although that's a great question, but I think the people of America have seen that he is just not fit to run our country. And we have seen this over the last several years. It's run by his cabinet. He's a puppet to the cabinet that he has, and that's why we see all this very liberal, progressive agenda that's affecting our farming community, from the EPA to the agricultural department, you name it. It is very frustrating, and I hope he does the right thing.
Okay, all right, Representative Feenstra, thank you so much for your time. We certainly appreciate it.
Chip, it's always great to be on AgriTalk. Thank you so much for having me on.
You bet. That is Congressman Randy Feenstra, 4th District of Iowa. Davis and I will be right back with more AgriTalk.
The truth is hard to come by these days, unless you listen to AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. We're going to get back to some crop talk right now. It's middle of the growing season, time to assess the health of the corn and soybean crops. Helping us do that is Dr. Alison Robertson, Extension Field Plant Pathologist at Iowa State University. Alison, it's good to talk with you again. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show again.
You bet. Glad that you are here. Like I said, middle of the season, we're just doing an assessment of the plant health that's out there. I do know that there is some tar spot in Iowa corn. What's the situation there?
Yes. So actually the crop is looking very good. I've heard several reports from folks, both the corn and the soybean. Yes, in the corn, we are finding tar spot, but it's usually at very low incidence, which means it's not on every plant in the field. So it's on, 1 in every 10 or 20 plants. And then maybe even less than that. And then we're only finding like 1 or 2 spots on a leaf for the most part. So it's there, but not at levels to be concerned about yet.
Okay. Now, when you do find it at that low level, what should be your process after that? How often do you go back? At what point do you need to do some treatments?
So when you find it at that level, that means that you've had the right conditions for the disease to develop. So a couple of things I would recommend. One is to check on your hybrid, see what it's rated for tar spot resistance. The other thing that I would do is I would download the Tar Spotter app or the Field Profit app, and those 2 apps. And then you can plug in your field, and then you can run the tar spotter model on there and determine what your risk is. What I suspect that you're going to see is that your risk is low at the moment for tar spot development, and that's because we're getting very hot conditions. So for tar spot to develop, we know that we have to have 30 days of cool conditions. And when I say cool, I mean temperatures of 64 to 73 Fahrenheit. So we're just getting too hot. The disease is going to slow down over the next few weeks. What that means in terms of fungicide management is I would recommend not putting on that fungicide at tassel, but waiting a couple of weeks until those silks are pollinated and turn brown. You can even wait as late as R3 and then get in and spray the fungicide. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the fungicides only last for 21 to 35 days. And your grain fall period is 55 to 65 days. So if you can delay that application a little bit, you will protect your crop later into grain fill. And once we get into August, when temperatures start to cool down, then that tar spot is going to really come on strong. And so if you can protect that crop later into August, you're going to have less disease development in that crop. If you go in and spray a fungicide now at tasseling, my concern is that you're going to have to come back the beginning of August, middle of August, and put on another fungicide because it will have run out and you won't have enough to carry you through.
Gotcha.
So
timing that application is going to be really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I did write a blog today on the ICM News. So if folks want to go and read that, it actually has like a little figure just kind of showing you what happens when you delay that fungicide application. So just
Fantastic.
my thoughts, but yeah.
How do they find that blog, Alison?
It's called the ICM, Integrated Crop Management blog. So if you just Googled ICM blog, the other thing you can Google is itches and tasseling corn. That's what the blog is called, but I'm just thinking about, scouting corn and it's itchy and yeah. So, yeah.
I love it. Good stuff. What about insects? Any insects that we're dealing with as the corn crop is shooting silks?
Oh, I've seen a lot of Japanese beetles in the corn. So, and then, I've also seen rootworm beetles. Realize that I'm a pathologist, right? So,
yep.
Now we're talking about six-legged things, but yeah. So, from what I understand with those two pests is silk clipping. So just keeping an eye out on that. But don't ask me about spraying insecticides because that would be scary.
Yeah, we had your friend Aaron Hudson on the show last week talking about it. So we're clear. We're good.
Okay.
What about on the soybeans? Anything out there that we need to be aware of in beans?
Soybeans, hot, lots of moisture. So things I would be concerned about is frog eye leaf spot. Once again, check your variety for resistance. The other thing to remember with frog eye leaf spot is that if you're going to spray a fungicide, do not spray a strobilurin or a QOI because they are ineffective. Frog eye leaf spot is resistant to the strobilurin group of fungicides. So you need to go in and spray like a triazole or DMI or an SDA tri. And then the other thing that I was talking to someone earlier today would be white mold. So great grain conditions, but CropProtectionNetwork.org has the fungicide efficacy for soybeans. Go there, see what products to use.
Fantastic. Alison, thank you so much for your time today. We'll check in with you later this summer,
You're very welcome. Okay, right. Sure. Anytime. You know where to find me. Thanks.
We sure do.
Bye.
Dr. Alison Robertson, Extension Field Plant Pathologist at Iowa State University. Wow. Okay. Manage it closely. Understand what the risks are if you do spot some of the tar spot out in the field is what Alison is saying. Put a good assessment on it. Thanks for listening this morning. Come back this afternoon. We're going to have a conversation with Matt Bennett from agmarket.net. Tomorrow's Friday. You know what that means. Free for all here on AgriTalk.